hello, buenas tardes, good afternoon, buenas noches, good evening. I'm actually going to do this video in English, at least that's my plan. So let me know if you want anything in Spanish, and let's go. If you hop on live, I'll give people a second to hop on. Try and fix out my lighting situation here. But I'll give you a chance to hop on live with me, and I am so stoked because I just want to give this information to you. If you are someone who has said at any point throughout your life, but probably have said multiple times in your life, I wish I knew a second language. I wish I was fluent in a second language. Like, it'd be so cool to be bilingual, oh man, it'd be so useful if I spoke Spanish, or, man, if I wish I understood this person, or, it'd be so cool to be fluent. And then whatever other thoughts you have about that. But if you have had any of those thoughts about wanting to learn a second language, then this is for you. These are the 3 steps that you need. I do my threes kind of funny. These are these are the 3 steps that you need to learn a second language successfully. Are you ready? Do you want to know what the 3 are? Do you think you know what the 3 steps are already? I would be super curious. If you had to put learning a language, hola, ves, ¿cómo estás? If you had to put learning a second language into 3 steps, what would you think those 3 steps were? What would you think you have to do? So, one that I hear a lot. And this happens to me all the time, right? I sit down for conversations with my friends at I was at my friend's dinner table the other day, and we all were having a bunch of people over, and people, find out what I do, and they say, oh, I always wanted to learn Spanish. I live in California, so most people most people do speak English, but oftentimes, a lot of my friends are native English speakers. And in this case, most of my friends at this table were native English speakers, and they said, I always wanted to learn Spanish. I thought it would be so cool. And that's, and that's usually kind of where it sits. And then someone else jumps in and she says, oh, well, what you really need to do is just go move or live in a Spanish speaking country. That's really the only way to do it. If you want to learn a second language, go live in a Spanish speaking country. That's really the only way to do it. Would that be on your list as one? Do you think that's one of the steps that you need? Is you need immersion? Like, you need to live in a Spanish speaking country in order to really learn Spanish successfully, for example, or you need to live in the United States or in, England in order to really learn English successfully. In order to really be fluent in a second language, you have to live in a country and you have to be surrounded by native speakers. Would that be one of your steps? If it is, then I'm going to blow your mind with step number 1. The first step you need to learn a second language successfully is you need to be able to understand it. I know, it sounds so simple, right? You need to be able to understand it. You need meaningful input. Here's what that means. You need to be able to hear it. You need to be able to read it, or some combination of the 2. And it has to make sense to you. If you don't speak any Spanish and you go move to a Spanish-speaking country and nobody communicates with you in your native language in English, they only communicate with you in Spanish, it is going to be a very slow, long, hard road to fluency in Spanish, because when we don't understand the language that we're hearing or seeing, it's white noise. It's just background noise. We just tune it out. Once upon a time, I dated someone that spoke a different language, that spoke Urdu. And after, a couple months of dating, the guy's friends, they would all hang out and they would all speak Urdu to each other. And the guy's friend asked me, he was like, So have you picked up Urdu yet? And I went, no, I haven't picked up anything. When you start speaking, it's just white noise to me because no one's giving me explanation. No one's making it mean anything to me. It's just background noise. It doesn't mean anything to me. So step number one, if you want to learn a second language successfully, you've got to have meaningful input that you understand. So you've got to have a way that that language is being presented to you in a way that you can understand. It's crucial. You're not just going to magically absorb it by osmosis. We can't just like bathe in a language. If it's not made meaningful, we don't pick it up. So it's got to be meaningful. And the more meaningful it is, the more you pick up. So it's super helpful if someone is actually trying to communicate a message to you. Now, yes, there are people that learn a second language. They get their meaningful input by watching a favorite TV show over and over. They watch Friends over and over. I do that in my personal time all the time, but but they watch Friends over and over, and they translate it into whatever language they're trying to learn, or that's how they learn English. And so first they understand what's happening in the episode. They can see it's all being acted out, and then they can understand some of what's going on in certain scenes. And the more and more they watch it, the more and more times, the more they pick up, until they have understood enough of what's happening in Friends that they have learned an amount of English by watching Friends. That's one way of making it meaningful. But you got to watch Friends a lot. You got to watch that over and over and over again for it to become meaningful. Versus if someone is trying to communicate something directly to you, then two things are happening. You are much more motivated to understand the message that someone is giving you, and that other person that is communicating to you is super motivated to get you to understand the message that they are trying to communicate. And that is meaningful communication. And the more meaningful input that you have, the more you understand of that second language, the more quickly your skills will grow. So you will understand a lot faster by having, say for example, Spanish. If Spanish is your second language, having someone communicate to you in Spanish, trying to get you to understand, and doing helpful things to get you to understand, making hand gestures, writing out translations, providing pictures, doing anything to help to get you to understand, and then you actually understanding it, that is where it starts. We don't learn language, and when you think about this, it's going to sound obvious as soon as I say it, but a lot of us kind of skip over it and we assume. But when we are learning a language, we start by understanding. We don't start by talking. We don't start by writing. We don't start by actually using the language, like putting it out ourselves. We start by taking it in. So before you ever put language out, you are taking it in. And so that's why step number one to learning a second language successfully is to be able to take in language, to understand it in your second language in a way that is meaningful to you. All right. Let me know if you have any questions on number one. Have you experienced this? Like if you're in a restaurant and you have an interaction with a waiter who's trying to take your order, or with a friend, or very often with someone who's asking for help, right? That's a situation maybe in your job. Maybe you've wanted to provide like a customer service to a Spanish speaker and Spanish is your second language. Or maybe you're on the street and someone is looking for directions and comes up to you. But when someone is looking for help, that's the situation, right? Where you're really motivated to understand what they need because you want to help them. That is an excellent example of meaningful input. You are trying to understand because someone is trying to communicate with you and you want to communicate with that person. So you're taking in the language and you are understanding it. Meaningful input. Step number one. Step number two. Step number two to learning a second language successfully is that it's got to be interesting. Yeah, it's so simple, right? Step number one, you've got to understand it. You've got to understand it. You've got to take in the language in a way that's meaningful, that you understand. The more you can do that, the more you can get information. This is step number one. The more you can get information that you understand, the more quickly you're going to learn, the more quickly you're going to arrive to fluency. It really all starts with understanding. So it's about having material that can be understandable, that's meaningful, that you take in. Step number two is you've got to be interested. You've got to be personally interested in the communication that's happening in that language that you're understanding. Because here's what's going to happen. Say someone does step number one for you. Someone presents you with all the information you need in a second language, and they make it super understandable, and they tell you all that you need to know about how to build drywall insulation. Or they give you all the information that you need to know. So they give you meaningful input. You understand it, but they're talking to you about like the process of how a dung beetle churns manure into, maybe this is interesting to you, but how a dung beetle turns poop into something useful. So whatever it is, if they're presenting you with something, maybe for you that's interesting. But let's say they're giving you information, but they're giving you information that you understand about how to watch paint dry on a wall. Like, you are not interested. You don't want to keep hearing about it. What would you do in your first language? If some professor wanted to give you a 5-hour lecture about how paint dries on a wall, you would not want to sit through that lecture. You would want to leave, even if it was an easy A. There are so much better uses of your time, right? Your time is valuable. Our time here on this planet is so precious. And unless you are prone to self-torture and self-punishment, you are not going to want to stay in a process, in a goal, want to keep spending your time on something that is neither interesting nor relevant to you. If it doesn't matter to you, you're not going to do it. So there's got to be this personal interest that either comes, and ideally both, because it's really fun and engaging and you want to, and also because you have a good motivation for doing it. And the other thing that might be is because you are really highly motivated to actually communicate with whatever person that you are communicating with. Whatever situation that you're in, it's meaningful to you, it's relevant to you, it's going to affect the outcome of something. You've got to have a personal investment in it, either because you're getting a good return, you're having fun, you're having a good time, or because you're being rewarded in some other way. For me, that reward looks like the connection that happens and the relationships that are formed by being able to talk in a second language. And sometimes that interest looks like it's a TV show that I really love and really like, and that's why I'm motivated to keep in it. Or it's a book, it's a story that I find really interesting. Whatever it is, I'm interested, and that's why I want to stay with it. Okay, so step number one, taking in the language in a way that makes sense, that you understand, getting meaningful input. Step number two, being interested in what's being communicated to you and how you are learning the language. So there's got to be some kind of motivation, or you will dry out. You will want to leave the process long before you get to fluency. There's got to be motivation. And sometimes there's external motivation on our lives, like you're interested because your employer is going to pay you more if you learn a second language, or you're interested because someone's forcing you to. And that works to an extent, but it never works as well as the kind of motivation that comes from inside you, that intrinsic motivation where you are personally interested because you're personally having a great time or you're personally getting something out of it, not because of an external motivation. So that interest is key in order. Oh, I love it. That interest is key, Base. I was just reading your comment. In order to keep you going and have success and achieve fluency in your second language, because here comes step number 3. Base, I love your comment. You can watch my videos on repeat over and over, but you're not watching Friends over and over. I love it. Thanks. I feel so honored. My videos are here and Friends is here. That is a high honor, high praise. I appreciate it. All right. So step number 3, and this is why step number 2 is so important, because you need that motivation, because your third step to learning a second language successfully, to reaching fluency in a second language, is time, is putting in time. Maybe that's not what you wanted to hear. In fact, it's never what we want to hear. We are always looking for the quick fix. In fact, most language learners are more than willing to spend more money on things that sell a quick fix, on programs like Babbel and apps like Babbel that say, oh, learn a second language, be fluent, speak a second language in 2 to 3 weeks. Or you'll be totally fluent after 3 months of this program. I can tell you without a doubt, without knowing what they're doing in their program, it's not true. It's bull. It's baloney. It's not true. And here's why. Nothing against them. But the way that our brains learn language, the way that your brain learns language, is based on repetition. And you might think, well, sure, I have a really good memory. I can stare at something and do flashcards again and again, and I'm getting repetition, and then I memorize the word, and I got it. You know what? Give up flashcards. You can throw your flashcards out. They're fine. If you have fun with them, if there's something motivating to you, then sure, keep doing flashcards, if that's what you want to do. But you don't have to, because that's not the kind of repetition I mean. The way our brains learn language is through repetition. We've got to hear each word. We've got to encounter it. Linguists say about 10,000 times before we own it, before we acquire it, before it's yours forever and you can recall it whenever you need and use it whenever you want. That's a lot of repetition. That kind of repetition takes time. But more than that, it's not just straight repetition. It's not rote repetition. It's not memorization. It is repetition, encountering the language over and over in meaningful, different contexts. Context is huge. Context is everything. Meaning, if you're doing an app and you only ever see a word used one way in one sentence, and you get really good at putting that sentence together, that's great. You might feel like you know that word. But what's going to happen when you go to have a conversation with someone and they use that word in a totally different sentence? Words have nuance. Words have multiple meanings. Words get used in different contexts. And what that means is until we encounter those words in all those different contexts, not just standing alone, but used in a meaningful way to deliver a message different ways in different contexts, we don't really know that word. And the more and more we repeat and we encounter words in language, in new contexts, the deeper our understanding is. The more we own that word, and the deeper we understand how to use it correctly. So fluency requires repetition, a ton of repetition of language used in a meaningful way in all kinds of different ways, in all kinds of different contexts and different scenarios. And that simply takes time. That's a process that takes time. Now, if you're looking for it randomly, it's going to take a long time. But if you're doing it in a more purposeful way, you can fit a lot of repetition into an amount of time and achieve the process faster, but it's still going to be a process that takes time. So, I have a bonus step for you, because these 3 steps will get you to learn a second language successfully. If you take in the language in a way that you understand, meaningful input, step number 1. And then step number 2, you continue encountering, hola Analia, hi, how are you? Step number 2, if you continue encountering and using the language in a way that keeps you interested, in a way that you have personal interest in. And then step number 3, that personal interest allows you to continue using and taking in the language over time, and you get the time that you need to encounter the language in all sorts of different ways, in different meaningful contexts. Then you will learn a second language. You will be successful in learning a second language. Absolutely. That is it. Those are the 3 steps you need. But I have a bonus step for you. That's totally true. Some of those different contexts are encountering the language used, spoken by different people with different accents. That's a way of understanding it, right? When some people don't sound like other people. So that's another layer too of being able to understand people that sound differently or are using slang that's different. Absolutely. That's totally part of context. So you learned a second language successfully. You followed all 3 steps. But there's one more thing you're probably going to want. Because we don't want to just learn a second language successfully unless we all want to be like the NSA. If we just want to be listening in on other people's conversations, great example, I know. But if we just want to be listening in on other people's conversations and understanding, then great. Steps 1, 2, and 3 will get you there. But what about feeling confident using the language? What about feeling confident when you are speaking or when you are writing in your second language? Not just taking it in, because that is truly how we learn language, but what about using it? Are you automatically confident and comfortable when you have a high level of understanding, a high level of fluency, but you haven't spoken, but you aren't using the language? Typically, no. In fact, I have students that start their language journey with me at the beginning level. They come into my entry-level classes, to my beginning intermediate classes, with a high level of Spanish. They know so much vocabulary. They could ace a grammar exam. They have a ton of language that they understand. When I give them an introductory reading exercise, they know it. They read it. They understand all of it. But they are not comfortable and they are not confident speaking. In fact, that is hands down the number one thing that my students say they want the most help and the most support with, is confidence speaking. They don't come and say, no one has come and said, I need help, learning more vocabulary. I'm not sure how to do it. Or I need help understanding. I'm not sure how to do it. Everyone wants to do that. That's part of the process. But what everyone says they want the most help and support with, and why they're coming to me as a language coach, is because they want to raise their confidence speaking and using their second language skills. And that does not come automatically. So here's your bonus step number 4. You do steps number 3, meaningful input, high interest, and taking time, studying over time, giving it the time that it needs to happen, the time and the repetition that it needs. You will learn a second language. But bonus step number 4, to gain the confidence in using your second language, you've got to practice it. And not just practice it, because this is where a lot of people go wrong, is they force themselves to practice. They go into restaurants, they go into different, they go to Spanish-speaking countries, they travel, they do all these things, they try to speak with native speakers, they put themselves in situations to practice, and sometimes it makes them less comfortable. It makes them less confident than ever. Sometimes that practice can hurt their process more than it helps their process, because they're not understood, or they become so nervous and get overwhelmed, or because the interchange doesn't go well. The other person maybe doesn't have the patience for their Spanish and switches back to English, and they can't even have that communication in Spanish that they wanted to have, using Spanish as a second language for an example. So to gain the confidence, you need to use it. You need to have an area, an environment to practice using it that is safe, that is going to give you the time that you need, and reserve judgment and criticism where you know none of that is going to happen, so that you feel good enough to practice. And not only that, because you could probably do that by yourself, recording yourself on a phone or whatever, but not only that. So you're practicing in a safe environment, but where you actually have a deep connection, where your practice, where what you're communicating in Spanish earns you something, where it gets you a reward. And that reward isn't like I'm paying you to speak Spanish, although that would be fun. Sign me up for that program. But where the reward is that you get to form connections, relationships that you would not otherwise have gotten to form. For me, I cannot describe the time that I feel the most magnetic, alive, just really, really enjoying myself, is when I am connecting with someone in my second language, because it opens up this whole other realm. It's like a magic tunnel between two people when you're able to connect with someone that you wouldn't have been able to connect with in the same way if you didn't speak the second language. There is real magic. There's a real feeling in being able to connect with someone in your second language. And I think part of it has to do with the fact that we just kind of take for granted the way that we're able to communicate what we want and what we need in our native language. And it's like a little miracle when we're able to do it in our second language for the first time. And it continues to just add this extra magic to the quality of our relationships, to the profoundness of our connections, and just to our own sense of reward and motivation for having those conversations in the first place. So, growing the confidence to use your second language has a lot to do with practicing in a safe space, and everything to do with having rewarding connections come out of it. That's your bonus step, because I think that's all where we want to get to. Unless you just want to be a little spy or a little fly on the wall listening in, and maybe you do. No judgment. But if you want to be able to use your second language, then you need step 4, number 2. You need step 4, 2. You need step 4 also, where you're able to practice in a safe space and have rewarding connections come out of it. And your confidence and your ability to communicate will both soar out of that. So this is why, and you can do the math for yourself. All this information I am giving you, I hope it is of so much value to you. If you are learning a second language, want to learn a second language, have wanted to try learning a second language, or maybe you're on your third language, I hope this serves you so much and you can take it and apply it in whatever way you want. But if you are thinking, that sounds great, I agree, I'm on board, that makes sense. Or even if you're thinking, I wonder if that's really true, I'd like to give it a try, that's interesting, but I need to see for myself, then here's the thing. I have built my language programs for adult language learners specifically to meet every step of this process, including number 4. So my courses deliver all of your second language from your very first level, all in a way that is meaningful to you, where you can understand everything that you hear and everything that you read with the support from my classes. So you get all meaningful input, no white noise, and you don't have to travel anywhere. My classes are all online, so you can take them from the comfort of your own home, from your office, while you are traveling, from Starbucks, wherever it may be. You don't have to be in a country that speaks your second language, although you could be, and I definitely encourage travel. So my classes deliver a ton of meaningful input, and not only do I always try and make it as absolutely interesting as possible, I'm not reading you the encyclopedia or describing any boring processes, but not only are the classes themselves interesting, but I am always applying it so that it can be personally relevant to you. So that even if one particular class isn't of the highest interest to you, the way that we apply the language that you learn from that class is personally relevant to you. I use personal questions and applications in every single class. Number 3, so you are motivated, it always matters to you. It's always about you. And then number 3, the time that you need. Here's the thing. I used to offer shorter sessions. I used to offer shorter sessions to students. In fact, I still make it possible for students just to join me for one 8-week course. They're called single sessions, and they can come, and I do say you will get new language skills out of this course, because you absolutely will. But I do not say that you will reach a new level of fluency, because it's not enough time. Because I have designed my courses, and in fact, they're very selective, because they are not courses or programs for adult students, adult language learners that just want to dabble. If you want to dabble and you want to play with language learning, there are free ways to do that. There are a ton of cheaper ways to do that. I totally get it. My programs are for the students and the adults that want to reach the next level of fluency, that want to see their language skills grow, that want to see results. Not just dabble and play because it's a fun thing to do, but they can go, hey, 5 months from now, I am going to look back and I am going to be at a totally new level of fluency from where I was before. So there's a reason I have language semester programs. It's a 5-month program because that's the time you need to reach a new level of fluency. And here's the thing, not everyone is going to magically spend 5 months, because we could all spend 5 months very different ways. And so we're not all going to reach the next level of fluency just because we were there for 5 months. It matters very much what you do in those 5 months. But for the language student that's investing in themselves by signing up for the language semester program, who takes the classes, who shows up to the coaching, which I'm going to get into in just a sec because that's step number 4, then I promise you, what you put in, I will make sure you get out. If you are invested, if you have committed to the 5-month language semester program, then you will be at the next level of fluency at the end of it. That I guarantee. However, if you sign up, you give me your money, and you don't show up in that way, then I cannot guarantee your results. So the time is important, but it's also the quality of the investment that's made in that time. And I don't mean the amount of money you pay. I mean the time you put into it. I mean the way that you show up for it. So that's why it's a 5-month program. That's why it's a semester. And each time you go through a semester, you will rise to a new level of fluency. And I promise you, I will get you to your desired level of fluency in your second language. And here's the kicker for that bonus step number 4. I don't just want you to learn a second language. I want you to feel so confident in using your second language that I only allow enrollment in my semester program with a language coaching option. So you can enroll in group language coaching or one-on-one language coaching when you sign up for the language semester program. And here's what the language coaching does. It is live sessions, either group sessions or one-on-one, depending on your enrollment, and they are live sessions. And for every class that you take during the semester, you also have a language coaching session with me to put all those new skills you are learning into practice in a safe place with meaningful, rewarding connection. You can ask all of your questions. You can feel confident and clear up any confusion, but more than anything, you grow your confidence in practicing in that safe space with rewarding connection. So, that said, if this sounds of interest to you, if this sounds like a process that you want to test, you want to prove, or you believe in and you want to see work for yourself, if you want to be 5 months from now and at a new level of fluency in your second language, then you need to sign up for my fall semester program right now. I will put the link in the comments, and I am available if you want to ask me any questions. So if you're on with me live, or if you're watching this in the replay and you're feeling me and you're vibing with me later, but it's in the replay, that's okay. The link's still going to be in the comments. You can still put in to the comments. Let me know that this is a journey you want to go on, because it is my honor and my privilege to take my language students on this journey and watch their second language skills grow. And I am seeing it happen. I have seen it happen, and I am seeing it happen more and more and more. And I love it. This is why I do what I do. This is the rewarding work for me, to make a process that works for you. So that said, I just have so much love for you, so much love for all of you who have the desire to learn a second language. If that's something on your heart, if that's a goal, I am here for you. So the link will be in the comments for my fall language semester, and I so hope you can be a part of it. I so hope you can join us, because I have a space for you. But if you're not, then I still hope thank you, Analia. Sounds like an awesome program. Totally. It is an awesome program. I was going to say, I think it's an awesome program, but it is an awesome program. Thank you. I'm so glad you can see that. Exactly the same thing as what Analia was saying, who happens to already be awesome and fluently bilingual. So go her. In fact, maybe trilingual. But the point is that I hope that this information, this video, was of so much value to you at any point in your language journey that you can take this information and run with it. And if this is not the semester for you, it's not going anywhere. Spring semester will be next, and fall semester will be next again after that. And they will continue. And honestly, I said this recently in an email, it's like a Christina Aguilera song. It just keeps getting better. So I hope you can join at some point if that is on your heart to do so, if that feels good to you. And if you want more information, and if you are ready to join now, then I am ready for you too. So leave me a comment, send me a message, let me know. I'll make sure you get the information you need, you get any questions answered, and I cannot wait to watch where your language journey takes you, because I truly believe it is changing the world. All of us on these language journeys, reaching out past our first language, are contributing to positive change in the world. So, thank you for being you. Thank you for having this goal. Thank you for spending this time watching this video with me. Analia, I love it. I do believe trilingual is in your future. And by the way, Chica, I've been loving watching your pictures from Barcelona and all over Europe. I absolutely love it. You are living an amazing life. So keep sharing, please. All right. I'm working on my trilingual as well, by the way. I really do believe in everything that I talk about, and I am mimicking this exact same process for me in a third language, in French. Right now, still at the very beginning level. But I know it's only a matter of time before I reach my desired level of fluency in my third language, and then my fourth and my fifth, and every language after that. So, hey, why are you laughing at me for that? Bashkim, hola, ciao, hi, how are you? I'm just about to end and sign off, but so good to see that you joined and hopped on. And I hope you will enjoy the replay. If this is of interest to you, then definitely make sure you get all the information from it. Have a wonderful night, or whatever day it is when you're watching this. And I hope to see you soon in class. Hasta pronto. Buenas noches.